Hello everyone and welcome back to me having a video up. If you noticed in my last Terraria video, there were definitely some major frame rate issues with the recording, and I have been trying my best to find some way to fix that, as it has very much annoyed me and made me feel like, why bother posting something if the quality is going to be horrible because it's running 14 frames per second. And so I have kind of not put up anything for a while I've been working on it. Hopefully today's video will go well. I am also probably going to be trying some more things, so if I don't have something up in the next couple days, that's why. If I can't figure it out, it might end up leading to me doing more of a stream consistently instead of focusing on these pre-recorded videos. But we're gonna have to see where that leads us. I have tried recording a couple times in the past few days and just couldn't get anything that was running decently. I've done a couple things since then that will hopefully have helped, but other than that, you know, we're working to try to do as best as we can here. Because I want to show off this game. This is called A Wizard's Lizard, which is one of my favorite game titles in recent memory. Essentially, this is a top-down, roguelike-ish game, kind of along the lines of Binding of Isaac. The basic story is that you play as Raga here, at least to begin with, who is a lizard that belongs to a wizard, if you were unable to guess that from the title. And essentially, the wizard created a potion that allowed him to essentially master death. And the Grim Reaper wasn't all too happy about that. So he kind of stepped in and kidnapped the wizard, took him to his crypt, and now you, as the wizard's lizard, need to go after him to try to save him. That little box I picked up here was worth 2,000 gold. As you progress through the game, as you play through more often, you're going to save several villagers who are going to give you items and who are going to increase the amount of gold you get at the start of each run, which then allows you to buy items here that you either have unlocked from the start in the case of these 3 weapons, or that you unlock with blueprints in the case of these 3 items here. I am actually going to go with this monster manual here and this helmet. The monster manual is actually, sorry, one second, let me just see what's going on here. Got it. The monster manual is going to allow me to see enemies' health, whereas the helmet is just going to give us a little bit of armor. If we press M here to pull up our map, we can see we have 1 armor, 1 speed, 0 attack, we have our sword, a helmet, and the book. So there are some interesting mechanics in this game that we're going to get into a little bit as we go on. But for right now, let's just start out. And you're going to see why I say this is like Binding of Isaac pretty quickly. You know, you move around with WASD, you shoot with the arrow keys. You can shoot diagonally, although it is very hard to get your first shot to go diagonal by virtue of the fact that, it's very hard to press the 2 buttons at the exact same time. It's kind of like doing a jump swing with the Matic in Spelunky. It's not the easiest thing to pull off consistently, although you can do it. And you can do it relatively consistently. It's just not very easy to do as such. So essentially our goal here is going to be to work our way through the 3 areas of the game in order to eventually reach Death's Crypt and save the wizard. If you notice these ghosts here, they aren't really doing much, they're just walking around. They aren't important right now, but they will be later. As will this key, which, as you can tell, these blocks are preventing us from getting to. But those ghosts seem to be having no problem walking through it. Ring of Minor Defense. I've never actually found that before. So that's going to give us an extra armor. Cool. So now we do have to be a bit careful in this room. If you notice, there are 2 owls up here that are brown and 1 that's white. If I attack any of these owls, I'm going to take care of this bat here first. If I attack any of these owls, they're going to charge at me. Now if I attack a brown owl first, this white owl is going to charge as well. But if I attack the white owl first, then the brown owls just kind of sit back and watch. Oops. That was really stupid of me. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we have taken a little bit of damage, nothing too severe just yet. I don't want to go into exactly what's going to happen if we die, but there is kind of a unique mechanic that takes place when you die in this game. That is really much different from what you see in most cases. But we'll get into that when we die, because most likely we will. I don't think I've ever made it through actually a full run of this game without dying. In fact, I've usually died enough to actually end the run, not just dying once and showing off what happens then. But this game did go through a successful Kickstarter a while back. It's by Lost Decade Games, by the way. I forgot to mention the developer name off the top. But yes, this is by Lost Decade Games. Does that give me more armor, the same armor, doesn't really matter. I think they're the same item. Oops. Stepping on those dirt patches will cause zombies to spawn, which can be beneficial. But yeah, this is by Lost Decade Games. My apologies for not stating that off the top. It was successfully kickstarted a while back under the title of Crypt Run. So if you are familiar with that Kickstarter, you are familiar with this game to an extent, although the name has changed since then. But yeah, essentially this is kind of our standard Isaac or other roguelike-esque top-down action game mode, where we're going to go around clearing out all these rooms of the map. But like I said, there are a couple little twists on it that make it really enjoyable to me. And it's definitely difficult enough where I'm going to spend some time with this trying to get through to the end, which I have not actually come anywhere close to doing just yet. I have encountered one glitch, which kind of prevented me from moving onwards. I'm not sure the specifics of what caused it, but at one point I was in a room and it never opened up the doors for me to go to the next line for me to leave the room, even though all the enemies were dead. So I was essentially just kind of trapped and I was unable to progress. Oh god. That owl almost just ruined my life. Screw you, white owl. Okay, so we are 2 health away from dying and being brought into our next phase of the game, so to speak. Obviously my goal is to prevent that because I would like to stay alive, but some things, especially the boss fight here in the first area, get much more difficult as when you are or post-death than they would be if you hadn't died during the run. One thing to note here is that the bosses for the areas, at least from what I've seen, are stagnant. Unlike the rest of the layout and everything, which is randomized. Oh, there are 2 white owls. I really don't like this. Yep. Okay, so now we've died, and now we enter into the world of the dead, which is going to leave us with another life in which we are in a slightly different area, so to speak. So now we're going to clear this room, and then we're going to go back a bit, because if you remember that key that I said would be important later, we had to be in the world of the dead to get that key. Now also these ghosts are now skeletons that we can kill, so that is an important difference in that we are going to actually have to fight all these things that before were just wandering around. And there is a way to revive again, which I will be getting into in a little bit. Weapon upgrade. It doesn't actually change anything on my stats screen, but it does have a little bit less cooldown. I've had this weapon before. It does seem to fire a little bit quicker, so despite not having any blatant stat ups on the screen there. Oh god. So these little bone piles, when you're alive, don't do anything. When you're dead, they spawn never-ending amounts of ghosts. They're kind of like, if you think of the Gauntlet games, how all the enemies spawn from one spot, that if you destroy it, the enemies stop spawning. That's what we've got going on there. So now our quest is to find our way back to the key, which isn't too hard, because this first area generally turns out to be rather linear. I don't think I've ever had too many branching paths in the first area. There are definitely a lot more in the second, but this first area tends to be a bit more open and a bit more consistent. it does look like we can head back this way now. We got the key. So I am going to try to fight my way through here while in the world of the dead until we get to the boss, which should be coming up before too long. And then I'm going to revive before going into the boss. That's going to give me more time, more health, mostly, I believe, to fight the boss with than if I revive now and then go to the boss afterwards. And so this is a very fun game. As I mentioned, it is, you know, it's not quite to the extent of randomization as something like Isaac. You're going to be fighting the same boss at the end of the first floor every time. But it also allows for a lot of openness. Now, this shopkeeper I can't do anything about who sells the blueprint. Shopkeepers who actually have items for sale, if I choose to, we can actually kill this man. Which, you know what? Let's do it just to show it off, because the shopkeeper actually has some pretty tough AI. He is very predictable, but he is also very damaging, and he is a little bit difficult to fight. I just realized, though, that I'm not going to know before I go into the boss fight, so maybe staying dead until I get there is not the best option. As you can see, these hammers get a little bit hectic as time goes on. And pretty much if you kite him and you keep him firing straight forward, you're going to have a much easier time with things, but he still poses a decent challenge, and he's going to do a lot of damage if he hits us. Luckily, I managed to avoid getting hit. So now I'm going to come back for these items, but first things first, we're going to go revive. As mentioned, I've kind of changed my idea on that a little bit. So essentially, in order to revive yourself, you're going to come back up to this room up here, which had our big pentagram in the middle of the floor, and you're going to stand in front of it, and this is going to heal you up back to living. Now, when you do go back to living, obviously the screen gets darker, but also you get you only start back with 50 health. You don't start back with a full new life. So it's not as simple as really just, you know, walking into and waiting until you're almost dead as a dead character and then coming in and reviving all the way to full right away. But it's also not a bad thing. It definitely helps you a lot in terms of making progress. So now that we've robbed the shop, we can get this, which is the dungeon map. These things are still going to fire at me. And as you see, we got okay, so this is the shopkeeper's weapon. We can bounce this off walls. I would rather have the lance. Let's get out of here real quick so we stop getting attacked. And then we're going to look over here, which has our map. You can't really view the map. You can't really scroll the map from what I can tell. So you do only have access to what is in the 3x3 grid that is visible from where you are. Now, this guy in the middle behind the barrel is one of the villagers that we can rescue to boost up our money count at the start of a run, which of course is something that we want to do as much as we can, because that means more items to start with, and by extension we have more we can do. So in order to save him, you just burst this barrel open, go up to him and hit spacebar, which is your action button, and that's gonna save him, bring him back to the town, and offer you up an extra 500 gold at the start of each run. So now we can also try to kill off some of these guys for some extra gold. I do want to buy that blueprint. Having more blueprints is always a good thing. Do have to keep an eye on that spike trap, because obviously that could ruin my day. Okay, so with that room cleared out, except for these couple other little zombie spawns. And here's what I mean by there are some branching paths, and my lights just kind of flickered on and off, so hopefully that doesn't mean that there's a power loss or anything incoming. But yeah, as you can tell, there's certainly a degree of you have more to fight than you absolutely have to. You can choose to kind of hold yourself a bit longer in order to make things go a little bit better for you. And here we have the boss. So the zombie warlord here is your first boss for the cemetery area. I don't know why I just let myself summon that zombie. So now my strategy for him is he has a few phases of attack, which he's going to cycle through. The first is where he's throwing his ball and chain at you like this. where pretty much you want to be walking around him in a circle, because that is going to keep you at a relatively safe distance. The second, he's going to start spinning his ball and chain as this way. When he comes to a stop with this, he'll enter the third phase, which is much easier when you're alive than when you're dead, where he is going to start spinning. Oop! I don't know why I just walked right into that zombie. He's going to start standing in one place, spinning his ball and chain, and we are going to have to deal with these zombies he spawns, and then we get some free time to attack him before he ends up coming to a halt with his ball and chain and resuming his other attack pattern. So this is going to be a cycle that's going to repeat. These zombie pools can be exhausted, by the way, so there is something to be said for trying to walk through them. He's going to do a lot of damage if he hits us with the ball and chain or if he walks into us. Not quite as much when it's spinning, actually. I don't know why he keeps standing right in line with where he's moving, but... Okay, now he's in kind of the worst spot for him to call up the zombies, because when he's right in the middle there, his ball and chain has obviously the most of the room covered that it can, and that makes it a little bit more threatening. As a whole, this fight isn't too tough to deal with. Oh, I did just spawn myself an extra damage zombie and get hit by the ball and chain. But as a whole, if you're alive, this boss fight isn't too hard to deal with. If you're dead, it's not too bad either. I mean, it is the first boss. But if you die mid-boss battle, this gets really ridiculous for a while. And you can see with all those ghosts and the two piles of bones on the ground there, you can tell why it would get much more difficult. Because he is going to, if he kills us, we're going to have to deal with all of those ghosts as well as getting rid of the spawners, which is obviously going to make things much more difficult for us. But as long as we don't take a lot of damage on this last phase of the fight here, we should be in good shape in terms of clearing them out. I have really enjoyed my time with this game, by the way. If that's not clear from the way I've been talking about it, I have really enjoyed my time with the game. I haven't spent a huge amount with it yet, but it's certainly something that I see myself playing through until at least I've beaten the final boss a couple times, gotten some of the achievements. There we go. And otherwise had pretty much a full experience with the game I would like to get. But let's get out of this room real quick. We have a blueprint back up here, if you recall, that we can buy. So let's buy that. That's going to give us a blueprint for a lantern. Presumably going to light up more of the area for us. Not the most useful thing, but I can definitely see a use for it. So now we wander through here with all these ghosts, and we get our gold chest for completing the area. So let's break open these lanterns first for a little bit of extra gold. Open the chest up, and we get the poison sword, which is a consistent drop. I'm going to go with the sword. I stuck with the lance last time I went through, but the sword does do a little bit of poison damage at least. So that's a plus. As an idea, one of the achievements for this is to beat the entire run within 15 minutes. So the fact that it took us 13 to get through that first stage there kind of shows you that there is definitely an upper limit. I mean, there is definitely an upper skill ceiling to go on there. Those little skulls you see flying around are the equivalent of ghosts. They're only going to affect you if you're dead. You got some face huggers. We've got one of these Zora looking dudes, who are called, I believe, lurkers. We're going to want to take him out as quickly as possible because he will jump underwater and disappear from us. Oh, and there is actually one of these guys as well. There are occasionally enemies like that who kind of blend in with the environment and can make things a little bit confusing. I don't think I've ever actually dealt with one of these guys before. That's kind of a scary attack, and I kind of want it, to be honest with you. Okay, so those guys are dead. We got a chest up here which has... Ooh, steel plate. Never gotten that before. We're now up to 4 armor, so that offered us 2 versus our former 1 from our chest plate. Okay, let's clear out the room and then move onwards. We've got a couple of these little dudes. Got another chest in here as well. And this is our pentagram room, so if we want to, excuse me, but if we want to revive after we die at some point, we can go there. And a freeze ring. So I can either have a ring that gives me +1 armor, or a ring that prevents me from being frozen. I'm gonna go with a ring that prevents me from being frozen. And oh yes, because we got the map, I didn't show this off, but we can actually see the whole map now, and see that we're gonna be going up to the right, down and around, and then up and to the right again. And there is one room in the bottom left which is superfluous. It's not going to do anything for us. Now, one thing about, if you remember that key that we got, the swamp key, there is kind of the antithesis of that here in the swamp. Now, okay, this man is not angry at me despite the fact that I killed him before. There are a couple of health potions in here. As well as another map, which doesn't help us, obviously. The potions I kind of want to kill him for eventually, because obviously that would give us an easy way to heal up. But yeah, the swamp key that we got is kind of the antithesis of an item in this area, which is, I believe, or at least I believe so. I believe I've seen it once, but I haven't been able to open it because I didn't know how to revive at the time. But there is a swamp chest, which is only accessible if you're living. So where the key you had to be dead to get, the chest you have to be living. So it does encourage you to use the mechanic of switching between alive and dead in order to get all the items that you can, which I enjoy because I think that's a very nice mechanic. I think it adds to the game. You know, at first it kind of reminded me, the first thing I thought when I first saw how the World of the Dead was and everything was kind of how Guacamelee has it, where they're having certain things accessible if you're alive, certain things accessible if you're dead, and some things accessible either way. I think that's a good strategy and a way to kind of cause you to think a little bit more than just your standard amount of, okay, well I'm going to walk into this room, I'm going to go through this, yada yada. It does make you kind of consider your plans of action. Steel Helm. So we get another little bit of armor. I can't actually hit this thing right now. The hitboxes can be a little bit weird. There's a little bit of an edge on where your sword actually hits from where it visually travels. Oh god. I think I've killed one of these things before. Oh god, this is going poorly. Very, very poorly. Should just dodge more completely. Stop trying to dodge it like greed. Oh, I died from poison. Got it. Okay, so that was a bad situation. We do have, obviously, the health potions for sale, as well as a, revival circle that we have already found. So it's not too much of a concern that we died. Obviously I would have liked to have survived longer, but all things considered, death is not the end in this game until you die while you're already dead. Then it's kind of the end. Steel gauntlets, what does that give me? More armor. Okay. I was hoping a little bit more attack power, but okay, so we got at least a couple of these muck things to deal with. I don't think all of these are going to turn into them, but obviously there's a chance of them doing so. Okay. They aren't the hardest thing to take care of. Oh god. And then I take a hit immediately because I had to be cocky and say that they weren't the hardest thing to take care of. And it does appear like actually everything in this room became one of these, so I apparently don't know what I'm talking about at all. Go away, slimes. There we go. Okay. And there just had to be... Oh god. This is a bad room. This is a very bad room. This might spell our death. Oh god. Just get me somewhere away from the skeleton spawner, please. Okay, we can survive this. We can do this. We probably can't do this, in hindsight. Okay. Okay, come on, come on, come on. We got this, we got this. We so don't got this. No, no! And as you can see, things do get quite difficult as time goes on. So since we saved the villager, we now get 2,500 when we enter into the world. And we now have a new item available for sale, which is a lantern. Which, yes, actually does increase our vision radius. And we can buy a couple things at once. Either way, that's going to do it for this first video on this. Don't be surprised if you see this game again. I very much enjoy it. It is a very fun little game. And I do want to beat it. So I might end up going through it on camera. As mentioned, this is A Wizard's Lizard by Lost Decade Games. It is currently on Greenlight, where you can vote for it to try to get it into the top 100 and beyond to get it onto Steam. It is also available at the developer's website via the Humble widget for $15, which I think is worth it. I think you'll get enough time out of the game to be worth it. For those of you who judge if a game is worth it by the amount of time you get out of it. I think it's very much fun enough to... and it is very much complete enough to justify $15. So yeah, I do recommend you go check it out, go give it a shot. I will put the link in the video description to the Greenlight page, to the developer's website where you can purchase the game. Those will both be in there. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at a game that I'm having quite a bit of fun with. And I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Have a good one. Later.